On this episode of Dubkir Depot, we're going to talk about some of our philosophies about the hobby, about rail fanning in general, and we're going to give you some of our favorites, both in the modeling world and the prototypical world. Don't go anywhere. And welcome into episode number 2 of the Dubkir Depot podcast, the official podcast of Dubkir Media. My name is Kirk Orndorff. I'm the owner and founder of Dubkir Media. I want to thank you for joining us. Whereas in this episode, we're going to chat a little bit about some of our philosophies, both while we're trackside, while we're editing, some of the things that we like to do, as well as some of our favorites. We're going to, our favorite railroad, our favorite places to rail fan, favorite models. We'll get into all of it. Be sure to head over to YouTube, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. In fact, we're actually now going to start a group, a Facebook group, so that way people can contribute. People can, we're going to do polls. We're going to uh, ask questions. We're just gonna have a good old time in a Facebook group. So be sure to search for Dubker Depot and on Facebook, and then join the group and we'll get things rolling. So, but speaking of getting things rolling though, we've got this episode to do. We don't want to ramble too much off about social media, but you really should be following us if you're not already. Uh, that said, philosophy. So we're going to start trackside. Our entire thing regarding model or regarding railroading and rail fanning and all that. This is a hobby. Hobbies are supposed to be fun. That is the number one goal when we're trackside, and I know a lot of people will argue about, missing consists or having poor light or whatever. All those are very valid. I think personally, and again, our philosophy here is rail fanning actually has a lot of different areas that can be looked into. I think might be the right word. You're looking at photography aspect, the videography aspect. You're looking at just being outside, hiking, traveling. There are different aspects that I think you can really go into within the rail fanning hobby. So, for example, us, yeah, we like to see trains. If we go out and see, if we spend 6 hours trackside and see one train, that might not be the most fun, and I completely understand that. I completely understand it if anybody doesn't think that way. Um, but that's where I think getting one of those secondary aspects of the hobby is a solid approach. Um, the photography aspect, I get people like to have good light on their trains. We're the same way. Look at all of our cover shots on our DVDs. Almost all of them have proper light. Um, that said, though, you can do some really good things photography wise in less than ideal conditions. Whether it might be a backlit shot, whether it could be a cloudy day. Find something that you can use. If photography is your primary aspect of the hobby, find something you can do in less than stellar light. One of the things that I've been seeing reels here of a recent RGS number 20 run on the Durango in Silverton. It was snowing. It was just awesome. Look atmosphere it looked like. You got the big smoke plumes going out everywhere, the steam coming out from all sorts of areas of the locomotive. Those are cool pictures in suboptimum light. Um, like a cloudy day, if you have storms off in the distance somewhere, find a way to get that dark area of the sky in the background, and cloudy days in particular, you can do shots that you wouldn't be able to do if the sun was out. So that's one thing that we look at that, hey, find this, use it to your advantage. Videography is pretty similar. Although you don't need perfect light to do video, you do need good audio. And that's where if it's maybe a really windy day, you might not be able to get the best audio for your trains. Maybe find a way to get an audio recorder, or find a way to be able to put a sock over your microphone, something that you can do to get rid of the wind. And these are all aspects of the hobby that benefit, but also at the same time they're things that you can tinker with a little bit, and so that's kind of the fun areas there. Um, when it comes to traveling, I did mention traveling earlier. Find a railroad you don't normally get to see. For us, we're in northern Colorado. We don't get to see NS very often. Find a popular NS line, or if you live on the NS, find a popular UP or BNSF line. And hey, let's have a vacation at some point in the year. Let's go travel to Arizona to see the Southern Transcon. Let's go travel to Pennsylvania to see the NS Pittsburgh line. Find a place that you want to go, and it doesn't have to be railroad related either. Like, hey, I want to go to the beach in Florida. Let's do a little bit of research on the Florida East Coast. That way we can maybe look at the Space Center, maybe we can get some FEC trains, maybe we can go catch the sunrise on the beach. There are things that you can do when traveling that don't always have to focus in on the rail fanning aspect of it. And that's stuff that we do when we're going on trips. When I went to the Amherst show in January of this year, I stopped at a museum I didn't even know it existed until that morning. And because it was snowing pretty hard, I went to the Lucy Desi Museum in Jamestown, New York. I'd never even heard of it until the night before. And that was where my hotel room was. And if you're going to go there, stay in town. They do offer a slight discount for staying in town, by the way. FYI. And I mean, it was fascinating. It was like $20 to get in, and it's about Lucille Ball and her husband, Desi. I honestly don't even know his last. That shows you how little I know about it. I don't even remember his last name. Um, But I mean, you start in the one building and it's their personal lives, then you move in, you get to see Lucille Ball's film career, then you move into the next one and you get to see both of their TV careers. You move into the next area and it's the TV studio that they own together. Her gold Mercedes is in there. They've got a bunch of Emmy awards in there, and then they've got sets from I Love Lucy and stories about the show and costumes and props from the show. And I mean, it was fascinating. It was find something like that that you can go to if maybe the trains aren't running. And I was headed for a train show at that one. But then the next day, I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. I spent 3.5 hours there. I feel like that wasn't enough time. Find something. It doesn't have to always be all trains all the time. Find an aspect where you can travel. Go check out the National Space Museum in Titusville, Florida. I mean, $10 to get in, and it was fascinating. They've got a bunch of equipment from the 60s and 70s in there. And as I'm doing this, Artemis is roughly around somewhere around the moon. And so I mean it's all fascinating. It all works in to itself one way or another. And you can do all that by traveling. Um, and then that's where you can also experience different various restaurants. Yeah, In and Out is basically in the desert, is in California and in the Southwest. I mean, it happened. Yeah, Sheets is basically all in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, that general area. So I mean, you get to see some of these areas that you don't get to experience if you stay at home or just within, you know 5 or 6 hours of home. And I realize if you live, say, on the Southern Transcon in Arizona, you don't necessarily want to go anywhere else where you can see BNSF unless you want to see the scenery of, say, the Columbia River Gorge. I get that. I get that. Um, Another aspect of the railroading hobby, rail fanning hobby is, the mechanical side. Maybe you're into cars, maybe you're into the locomotives. You can go into dive into mechanical stuff. How do these machines work? What is it with why do these 12 cylinders generate so much horsepower? That's a very fascinating thing that you can dive into within the hobby, and you could even turn that into a career if you really wanted to. So I mean, that's our thing. Find a secondary aspect of rail fanning. So that way you're not just out there, and if you don't get perfect light for every shot, you get frustrated with it. Find something else. Hiking. That's something, being like I said, in northern Colorado, we go down to the Moffat Tunnel route. Well, if you've seen the Big Ten webcam, you know how many trains are run on the Moffat. If you're into hiking, you can hike into the open space around Big Ten Curve, catch a train or two, hike back out. You still had an enjoyable time. So that's stuff that you really should look into it if you haven't already. And um, I'm not saying go get a second hobby. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But do find ways to make things more enjoyable to you. And I personally, I do enjoy a nice little hike. Crawford Hill. We hiked Crawford. Oh, the amount of hiking we have done on Crawford Hill is insane. It's been almost the entirety of the hill, the 13-mile stretch from Crawford to Belmont. It's fun. Especially now you don't see as many trains as you used to, but the hiking aspect is fun. The photography aspect I think is fun, especially if your conditions aren't fully perfect. Not every shot is going to be have the sun isn't going to be behind you every time. That's just the way life is. Rail trains don't run in perfect weather. We shouldn't be rail fanning in perfect weather unless we live in an area that makes it easy. Um, I also enjoy the traveling. I just mentioned I every museum I just mentioned earlier, I have been to this year. So I mean, and those are things that I never thought I would see. Maybe I thought I might get out to Cooperstown, New York, because I'm a big baseball guy. I played baseball growing up. I played baseball through college, um, and so Cooperstown has been on the bucket list. But guess what? I was able to get to go see it while going to a train show. So I mean, it was I was able to combine those two hobbies and really get both of them together and just had a wonderful time. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But now if we switch gears a little bit, we can go into the modeling aspect of the hobby, and I'll do its own episode on this at some later time. But oh my gosh, the stuff you can do in modeling! You've got the artistic aspect of it with the maybe putting on graffiti or doing a custom locomotive or painting some sort of small mural that you can put in the background of an image. There's painting, decaling, all of that stuff. That's art. That's artistic. And if you like the art aspect of things, focus on that and find a friend or somebody in a local club who is better at, say, the electronic aspect of things, where you can do wiring, you can do your decoders, you can put LED lights in, you can put truck lights in, you can put ditch lights in, you can put cab lights in, you can put lights on all of this stuff. And if somebody who's in the artistic aspect and somebody who's in the electronics aspect, you get them together and they can create stuff that's really really solid also. But at the same time, you can also just focus on operations. You can have the plyboard express, I think is what they call it, where you have zero scenery. The track is on a piece of wood, and you can run your local out, you can switch, you can run cars to this interchange, which then goes off the railroad. You can do all sorts of these fun little things if you just focus on operations. Maybe you don't even have any weathering on your locomotives. If you just enjoy the aspect of running the locomotives, running your trains, go for it. Dive into it. Have fun. It's a hobby. That's what it is supposed to be. um, and I mean, those are just three aspects of the hobby. I know there are more. Um, like signaling. I couldn't tell you at all how to do signaling on a model railroad, But yeah, we've got some in the area that are just superb. And I like, Northern Colorado. We've got the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. I'm 30 minutes away from that. We've got John Parker's Fall River subdivision. I'm 30 minutes from that. David Stewart's Appalachian in Ohio. I'm 25 minutes from that. Um, I mean, and all of these railroads have wonderful signal systems. Whether it's an actual CTC machine, whether it's JMRI and the computer system, it's all stuff that goes way over my head. And but yet I know how to work the CTC board. Fortunately, we have games to think of that again. Another future episode. Um, and so those are things within the modeling aspect that just have fun, find your niche. Maybe you enjoy doing scenery. Maybe you just do dioramas of scenery. The trains, the railroads have nothing to do with it. You just like doing the scenery. And maybe there is somebody who has a plyboard express that like, hey, maybe I could pay you a little bit to come do some scenery. It's another aspect of the hobby that you can dive into. Again, I'm a big proponent of finding secondary aspects, and I enjoy running trains. um I've kind of gotten into the artistic aspect of it with graffiti and custom painting and custom decaling, and it's all it's a very fascinating hobby, and nothing like the stereotypes. Well, I'm not going to say that stereotypes, some stereotypes exist for a reason. But it's not just Sheldon Cooper sitting there with his engineer hat on and the little Tycho Bachman starter set running around a table. So I think those are some fun aspects, and find the ones that work for you and dive into them, and don't be afraid to explore a secondary aspect like hiking into Big Ten curve or trying to paint and decal your own box car. Try it. If you fail, guess what? You don't need to do it anyway. So anyway, that gets us into like I said, we were gonna do some philosophies, some just kind of diving into some of the aspects of the hobby. Now I kind of want to dive into some of the favorites, and one of we're gonna start with some older favorites before we get into kind of some of the newer stuff. But favorite places that I have rail fanned, and a lot of the earlier answers still remain. But I've been to some new places though here in the last few years that are awesome. Um, we're gonna start though with some of the early favorites. The Montana Rail Link. I absolutely loved going up to Montana to watch the Montana Rail Link. Especially, I was able to go 3 times as a teenager before the SD70 Aces showed up. And there is absolutely nothing in modern railroading like a grain train climbing Mullen Pass with, you know, 3 BNSFs on the front with an MRL behind the BNSFs, um, 4 MRL SD40s and SD45s and 45-2s in the middle, and 4 SD40s, 45s, 40-2s on the back. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what they did with that railroad for so long. And I remember in 2022, my dad asking, why didn't we ever come out to shoot the gas local? It's because they had 45s on helper service on Mullen Pass, and his response was, "Yeah, you're right." So I mean, the MRL was just, especially before the Aces, was a phenomenal place to go rail fan, and I mean, even after the Aces, it was still really cool. Um, Another one of my favorite places is Crawford Hill. There's a reason why it was the second DVD full length program that we did. Um, we made several trips there while I was in high school. And at the time, we watched helpers go from pure SD60Ms to a mix of 60s and 75s to almost pure 75s. And then into the current configuration where it was maybe 270 max and then maybe two aces, two Givos, and then or any combination of those last two. But we got to see all of that as it changed, and I remember the first trip we made up there. We hiked for all the way from Belmont to the Twin Horseshoe Curves at Breezy Point, and um, all of the coal trains at that point pretty much still had 70 max on them, and helper sets were pure SD60Ms with a fuel tender in the middle, and that was just really fun, really awesome stuff. And then after that, we were told we could just drive in because I mean it was mid 2000s. Oh yeah, go ahead, drive in. Nobody cares. And then you get the Ponderosa Ranch, and um, where you could actually stay there and have your car right there, and that was awesome. And there's a reason why it was the second video that I did. And once I got that job that I had mentioned in episode 1 at altitude, where in the summer we had those 3-day weekends, you could go spend 2 days at Crawford Hill and then still have a day to recuperate. So that was really fun there. Um, uh, for me personally, the Cumbres and Toltec has kind of been a favorite place. Um, I actually haven't been there in a while now, but uh, few trips there in my early to mid 20s. We kind of got to a point where we were going once a year. Um, and then we hit kind of the 2019 2020 time frame, and I actually made 3 trips down there within, I want to say it was 3 trips in like 8 months. And one of those was the triple header, which is a video that we have. That was, we'll get into an episode on that DVD. It was just really fun. The rotary run with the rotary OY. And there was actually a trip just to ride it prior to that triple header. And so 3 trips down there in just a few months. It was really cool. And Chama is just kind of a nice, relaxing environment. It's a mountainous environment. You don't have real good cell service, so you're not just locked into what's going on in the outside world. And there's just something about being down there and the steam locomotives and the people are friendly and that kind of. So those are kind of the three early answers of favorite places to go rail fan. And then since I've started all of this, some of the answers that I thought BNSF in Arizona is fascinating. You get what 70 trains a day still. The scenery is completely different depending on where you are within the state. You got the 7,000 feet at Flagstaff. You've got the 500 feet elevation at the Colorado River. You've got the Yampai Divide. You've got the canyons, Kingman Canyon, Crozier Canyon. I think Nelson Canyon is the name of the one that's by Peach Springs. Uh, and again, I can get into all this in its own episode, but you got lots of canyons to go through. Canyon Diablo, where it's just this random, it's flat, and then you get this random canyon. You wouldn't even know to look for it unless you know that it's there. And the fascinating bridge that's over there and the drive in to get in there. A real fun area. Not all that far away is Tehachapi Loop. I thought Tehachapi was a really fun area to rail fan. Bakersfield still continues to be the only place where I've ever locked my car while I was touching the car. If you know, you know. Um, Out east, a couple places out east that I've been, I really thoroughly enjoyed the NS Pittsburgh line. You get the webcams on both sides, so you basically know everything that's coming. You start to learn the times as to how long it'll take to get from one camera to your current location and where those current locations are. Actually, not all that far away. Sandpatch. I'm really starting to enjoy going to Sandpatch. Spoiler alert: future project. Um, it's a really cool. It's very similar to rail fanning, like the eastern end of the Cumbres and Toltec, where there's just not a lot of people around. The roads aren't real good, except this is a double track main line. Cell service is kind of iffy, but that's something that's there. I've found to really enjoy the Tennessee Valley and the Chattooga and Chickamauga line between Chattanooga and Somerville, Georgia. That's a real fun area. And even though you're chasing a steam engine and you're out there with 80 of your closest friends chasing the steam engine, it's a fairly easy chase. Um, just south of there, I do actually enjoy the Florida East Coast. If you can get past all of the Florida isms. Another one that we've been to once as of this taping, we've been to once and would like to go back is U.S. Sugar. That's a really neat operation down there. Um, and it's way busier than I thought it would be. Well, and that's an episode for way down the road. We've only made one trip there. We don't have enough for a program. So we'll have to make another trip, and I won't even do an episode on them until the program is finished. So, but we'll get down to that at some point. Uh, another area I can dive into real quick in the next couple minutes is favorite locomotives. I've got a couple of them on the stand behind me here. We got 3985 is my favorite steam locomotive from the UP. Nothing, that it's an A plus, A plus, A plus when you talk about UP's three big steam locomotives. 3985, 4014, 844. They're all A plus. I like 3985 best because it was doing a lot of its running during my formative rail fanning years. So that's kind of where I've come from there. Um, I've got my absolute all-time favorite locomotive is BN 1991. I don't know what it is about it. I just love that locomotive. I would love to find one in N scale, or at least be able to paint one myself in N scale. Uh, we'll get there when we get there, though. Um, I do have on the table behind us here. We've got BN. We've got a BN big boat. I think it's a C30-7. BN was a favorite railroad as a kid, so that was one of those things. But anyway, we got lots of favorite things within the hobby, and that's the traveling aspect. And but anyhow, the timer's telling me it's time to wrap it up for this week. So, want to thank you for joining us, and again, be sure to head to YouTube, subscribe if you haven't. You can listen audio only on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's all available on our website. We do have Facebook and Instagram pages that you can go follow, and we are going to be starting a Facebook group regarding the podcast, and that will start to have some interactive stuff that people can choose to participate in. So, uh, want to thank you again for joining us.